This week on ANN, a new criminal code in Bolivia may result in religious liberty restrictions. Adventist leaders petition for prayer and support.
The church encourages members to reflect on the fundamental human right of freedom of conscience on Religious Liberty Sabbath.
And doctors of Loma Linda University Health establish Malawi's first physician-run treatment programs for epilepsy.
These stories and more coming up.
In Bolivia, religious liberty leaders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, along with other faith groups, are carefully monitoring the implications of a new criminal code.
According to Adventist leaders in Bolivia, the problematic section of the code is Article 88. The article forbids people to recruit, transport, transfer, deprive other people of liberty, or to shelter or welcome people for various ends.
It also includes a subsection that says recruiting people to take part in any armed conflict or in religious or faith organizations is punishable with a 7 to 12-year prison sentence. Those who break the code will also have the obligation to make economic reparations.
Church leaders say the application of the new legislation could entail risks for the exercise of the freedom of belief, assembly, and worship.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church's South American territory released a statement in response to the new code. It says the church sees any threat to this essential human right as a motive for concern.
It goes on to say, it is a moment to be cautious and foster dialogue. The church, therefore, calls every advocate person and organization to join us in prayer. May God grant his wisdom to our authorities as they discuss this topic.
Adventist religious liberty leaders in Bolivia and throughout South America are engaging with public and private organizations to defend this human right.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church has designated the third Saturday of January as Religious Liberty Sabbath. Members are encouraged to take time to remember the God-given gift of religious freedom. The special Sabbath is also a perfect time to stand in solidarity with those around the world who are persecuted for exercising their faith.
You see, Adventists uphold creation because of, by the way, our name, Seventh Day, refers to creation. But when we think about creation, it's not just about creation a lot, it's also about the creation of the climax of God's creation, that is human beings. And human beings are created in the image of God, which means that human beings have dignity by virtue of the fact that we are to reflect God's attributes and virtues. So, Adventists then, we have a unique understanding of freedom based, by the way, on love, to begin with. This is not just a legal matter. Sometimes it is reduced to a legal matter, my right to. But there are Christians all over the world who actually give up their freedom because of a higher value: loyalty to God, love of God, and love of neighbor. So even though freedom is highly important and we celebrate it because it is based on God and his love for humanity. So Adventists are true, we are true to our identity as a people who value creation by upholding freedom at the same time. They go together.
Visit AdventistLiberty.org to search for Religious Liberty Sabbath resources.
Approximately 1% of the world's population has epilepsy. The neurological disorder causes the loss of consciousness or uncontrollable convulsions due to abnormal electrical activity in the brain. However, in the southeastern African nation of Malawi, 1 in 20 people suffer with the condition. It is estimated that 900,000 people in Malawi have epilepsy. Unfortunately, there are only a handful of nurse-run clinics in the entire nation available to treat them. 2 doctors from Loma Linda University Health recently established Malawi's first physician-run epilepsy treatment programs. Warren Bowling is a professor and chair of neurosurgery at the Loma Linda University School of Medicine, and Travis Losi is the medical director for adult neurology at the Comprehensive Epilepsy Center at Loma Linda University. Together, they established the treatment programs at Malamulo Adventist Hospital in rural Makwasa. The program is also offered at the Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital in Malawi's second largest city, Blantyre. The programs use a video EEG system made by Natus Neurology. It records electrical patterns in the brain, enabling physicians to diagnose seizures, convulsions, and related disorder. Although Bowling and Losi have since returned to Loma Linda, they maintain close contact with their Malawian counterparts. Virtual technology allows them to consult on patient care cases and continue the peer mentoring processes from afar.
The first director of Adventist Chaplaincy Ministries passed away this month at 94. Charles Martin served the church's world headquarters as an associate youth director before he was appointed to oversee chaplaincy efforts. Prior to that, he served as a youth director of an Adventist local field in the U.S. state of California. During that time, he was responsible for the church's National Service Organization, or NSO. In a 2010 interview, Martin said, NSO activities focus on counseling young Adventists who face the possibility of being drafted. He and his family then moved to serve the church in Singapore. Singapore was located in what the Seventh-day Adventist Church called its Far Eastern Territory at the time. While there, he served as youth director. In 1985, the church's highest governing body, General Conference Session, appointed Martin as the first director of the General Conference Service of Adventist Chaplaincy Ministries. It became a department in 1995. According to Dina Bartel-Wagner, who serves as an editor and social media manager of Adventist Chaplaincy Ministries, Martin was instrumental in laying the ministry's foundation. She says Martin established annual professional development conferences. The programs were specifically designed to address the needs of Adventist chaplains. He also facilitated efforts to help educate others about the work of chaplains. Martin's wife and mother of their 3 children, Pearl, preceded him in death in 2009 after 62 years of marriage. In January of 2010, Martin married Eileen, who also preceded him in death in 2015.
Together, we can make a big impact on the health and well-being of the whole of our community. This was spoken of the Adventist Church in Renfrewshire, Scotland, by the leader of the local charity, Roar Connections for Life. The organization operates 12 county-wide clubs offering the elderly healthy meals, mental and physical exercise, and a befriending service. A public display of collaboration was celebrated at the community center where the local church will operate its ministry. Roar Connections Director Nicola Hansen officially handed the keys of their now shared facility to the pastor of the Paisley Seventh-day Adventist Church, Claudio Popescu. Hansen said, "We are committed to working in partnership with those who share similar aims, ideals, and values. The Paisley Church for years has made efforts to establish a center of influence. The center is located in one of the nation's most impoverished communities." Popescu said, "The Adventist Church has a long history of health reform, and we look forward to getting to know our neighbors and working with partners to meet local needs. This move is the culmination of a project that began in 2011. WISH, or West End is Safer and Healthier, was launched by Glasgow and Clyde's Director of Public Health. It is also led by the Paisley West and Central Community Council. John Wilby, chair of the Paisley West and Central Community Council, is the manager of the center. Wilby said, "This is an exciting opportunity that sees those early wishes brought to fruition. Partner activities will play a very important role in the West End's future regeneration."
Coming up, situating Adventist history was the center of discussion and presentations conducted at this conference.
But up next, a board certification program in lifestyle medicine validates the field. It also recognizes healthcare providers of Loma Linda University Health as official practitioners.
Peter and John were called in by the chief priests and elders about their preaching. They tried to defend their actions, but the leaders were very hard on them. They were commanded not to speak or teach in the name of Jesus. After further threats, they let them go. Peter and John went back to their own people and reported all that the chief priests and elders had said.
When we heard all this, we immediately raised our voices in prayer to God. The entire group prayed for Peter and John. We prayed for God to give boldness to these 2 humble servants. Such intense prayer I had not experienced for a long time. After we had prayed, suddenly the whole place was shaken.
People were filled with the Holy Spirit, and Peter and John went out and gave witness with great power and grace. They witnessed throughout the land about the resurrection of their Savior.
Welcome back.
We're so glad you've joined us this week.
Loma Linda University Health recently announced that 7 of its physicians received the first ever board certification in lifestyle medicine. The certification was introduced by the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine, or ABLM. Loma Linda University Health now has the most lifestyle medicine certified healthcare providers in one organization. The group was among 200 physicians and over 40 health clinicians who passed the exam in October of 2017. We previously reported on 2 professors from Southern Adventist University who also received the same certification. They were among the same group as the physicians from Loma Linda University Health. Leaders say the institution has been at the forefront of lifestyle medicine since it opened as a sanitarium in 1905. Dr. Brenda Ree, one of the physicians who received the certification, says lifestyle medicine is about finding and treating the underlying cause of a disease. She says the goal is to change behaviors such as nutrition, sleep habits, spiritual well-being, and physical activity. According to ABLM, chronic disease accounts for 70 to 80% of all healthcare expenditures. The chair of Loma Linda's Preventative Medicine Department, Dr. April Wilson, says medical advancements reveal many diseases can be reversed with lifestyle medicine. Wilson said, "We continue to be leaders in this space. The certification validates lifestyle medicine as a legitimate field and that we are qualified as practitioners to do the work we have been doing for more than 100 years at this institution."
Researchers and professors earlier this month discussed Adventism through historical lenses. The Situating Adventist History Conference was sponsored by the church's Office of Archives, Statistics, and Research. The 2-day conference took place on the campus of Washington Adventist University in the U.S. state of Maryland. There, the group heard presentations and engaged in question and answer session. The chief archivist and historian of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, David Trim, has more on the need to put Adventist history in a wider context.
The past conference brought together most of the leading historians of Adventism, a group that in the last 25 years has almost revolutionized Adventist historiography by deeply researched studies based in primary sources and archives, which has kind of transformed our understanding of Adventist history. But what we haven't done as Adventist historians so much is to situate our history in the wider history. And that's historians' jargon. What we mean is to put it in context. There are 2 reasons why it's important. The first is that there's been many really good studies of 19th and 20th century history, which, if we read them and apply them, give us new insights and approaches to our own history. But the second reason is we never exist in a vacuum. We always are operating within a wider society, and we're always affected by the currents of wider society, even when we think we're not. So by contextualizing, by situating our history, we gain a better understanding of where we came from. We gain a better understanding of ourselves. Just that we always need more historians of Adventism. There's still many areas of Adventist history that have not only not been contextualized, but not even been written. So if there are people watching who are thinking, I'd like maybe to do a master's or a doctoral program, Adventist history is a great subject.
Finally, in the news this week, Adventist humanitarians respond when a city in the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais experienced heavy rainfall and mudslides. The Adventist Development and Relief Agency organized a distribution to help residents make their home habitable in the wake of last month's storm. Adra Brazil has more.
Estas são imagens do município de Rio Casca, localizado na zona da mata de Minas Gerais. O cenário é desastroso. Imóveis alagados e destruídos, bens total ou parcialmente perdidos por causa da tempestade que atingiu o município no início de dezembro. Milhares de famílias estão sofrendo em virtude dos prejuízos causados pelo temporal.
Desceu o barranco e arrebentou a água toda, a água da casa foi toda embora e debaixo da casa está cheio de barro debaixo da casa.
Casa que desceu o barranco e a casa está cheia de lama.
A esperança de a gente recuperar as coisas que a gente perdeu.
Rio Casca decretou situação de emergência. A assistente social Josiane Avelar fala sobre as áreas afetadas.
Afetado aqui no município, né, e no povoado de Vista Alegre. A principal área afetada aqui foi o centro da cidade e toda a área comercial da cidade foi afetada, o que nos preocupa muito, considerando que já há um índice de desemprego grande.
A Agência Adventista de Desenvolvimento e Recursos Assistenciais, a ADRA, esteve atuando no local e voluntários se mobilizaram para auxiliar nessa situação.
Foram comprados 700 kits de limpeza, dando quase 21 toneladas em material de limpeza, que vai ser entregue em Rio Casca, distrito de Vista Alegre, também numa região aqui perto que foi afetada pelas chuvas.
É um donativo essencial para a gente resgatar de novo a dignidade e qualidade de vida dessas pessoas. Muito obrigada, ADRA.
Coming up, did you know Instagram has provided another way for you to stay engaged through hashtags?
But up next, learn who constructed what would become known as the engine room of Methodism.
I grew up in a family with 4 children, right? When you have that many siblings, it's easy for somebody to be always taking your things, stealing your property. It's your books, your toys, seconds at the dinner table or the comfortable chair in front of the TV. It became our custom to throw our hands up in the air and put boundaries around our things and scream, "This is all my property. Go get your own stuff." It's an interesting idea, ownership. What belongs to me? What belongs to you? How do we know? Everything belongs to God. Everything. Not some things or some people or some parts of the world or some planets or some galaxies. Everything. Everything belongs to God. So everything belongs to God, and then God asks us to join in caretaking, taking care of each other, of our earth, our resources, our potential. I've always thought this is terribly risky on God's part. Why not just throw up your arms and mark off your property and take care of it yourself? No, God asks us to get involved. The longer I do life with God, the less I realize I don't have a right to things or people. I do have a responsibility. I sense a shift from competition to cooperation. You know what? This is a much larger and rewarding way to live life.
Welcome back.
For this week's episode of Lineage, we'll learn more about 2 men who worked tirelessly to empower God's people in America and England in the 18th century.
George Whitefield preached approximately 18,000 sermons over his lifetime. He was quoted saying, "Better to wear out than to rust out."
And John Wesley rode on horseback throughout England to deliver Bible studies. It is said that he rode more than 240,000 miles.
George Whitefield made a greater impact in his ministry in America than in England. And in the 18th century, apart from the monarchy, he was perhaps the best known name on the whole of the East Coast. Virtually every man, woman, and child had heard the great itinerant preach at least once. He preached over 18,000 sermons in the course of his life. At the age of 55 in 1770, he was still preaching regularly despite ill health. He once famously said, "I would rather wear out than rust out." He died whilst on a trip to America in Massachusetts and is buried in the crypt of the Old South Presbyterian Church, Newburyport, Massachusetts. John Wesley, on the other hand, chose to stay here in England, and through the course of his long ministry, he would have a huge impact here. After he settled in London, John Wesley lived in this house here. However, he spent most of his time away from here, traversing the country on horseback, preaching and visiting the numerous small Bible study groups that he had set up. Through the course of his life, it is estimated that he traveled over 240,000 miles on horseback, often reading as he rode so as not to waste time. He once said, "The world is my parish." These words are engraved on his statue outside his home. He explained this by saying that wherever he was in the world, it was his duty to witness and minister there. Prayer was an integral part of John Wesley's life, and he wanted a special place to pray, so he had an extension built on the back of his house. You can see it today around the back, protruding out the back. You know, sometimes today, those of us who own houses, we sometimes will build a bigger kitchen, a bigger living area, or a bigger garage if we have some money. And yet Wesley took the time and money that he had to build a special place dedicated for prayer. This room is sometimes called the engine room of Methodism, and you can visit it today and pray there where John Wesley used to pray every day. It is sometimes said that big things come in small packages. John Wesley was only 5'3" or 161 centimeters, yet he was a giant of a man. He never intended to start his own denomination, and yet the movement that started as just a collective of small Bible study groups mushroomed into its own denomination. He died on the 2nd of March, 1791, and as he lay dying with his friends surrounding him, he grasped their hands and said repeatedly, "Farewell, farewell." Then summoning up all his strength, he said, "The best of all is God is with us." Then raising his arms one last time, he said, "The best of all is God is with us." To Wesley, it was granted to arouse the church in England from a state of stagnation and backsliding. And yet he was faithful in this duty. Two things that stand out from his life and ministry are the importance of the preaching of the word and the importance of small group Bible study. These two methods, I believe, divinely ordained, if done today, will cause the same revival in our lives and ministry that they caused back then. Wherever you are, whether it's preaching the word in your home church or in your home area, or whether it's doing small group Bible study in your family or in your home or in your workplace or amongst your friends, be faithful in doing these things, for that we can have the same revival that Wesley had several hundred years ago, and God can use those methods again today in our lives.
Don't forget, you can always visit lineagejourney.com to rewatch this episode and previous episodes.
It's easy to follow fellow users on Instagram, but did you know it's just as easy to follow certain topics and trends?
Emily Mastrapa has more for this week's social media segment.
Every day, millions of people share photos and videos on social media. Since its inception, Instagram has been a great platform to discover these photos and videos, and even people. Now there's a new way to find even more. It's now easier to stay connected with your interests, passions, and communities you care about by following hashtags. Following a hashtag is just like following a friend. Search for a topic that you're interested in, or tap on a hashtag from any post. At the top, right under the hashtag, is the follow button. Tap on that button and you'll begin seeing top posts from that hashtag in your feed. Some hashtags that we follow are Seventh-day Adventist, Sabbath, God, and Mission. The more you engage with the posts from those hashtags, the more Instagram will send you that sort of a post. So make sure you leave a comment or like the photo. You can even select Don't Show This hashtag on photos that you're not really liking by clicking on the menu button at the top right of the post. Instagram won't show you content similar to that again. Following hashtags is just the beginning of how you can get involved with and be inspired by your community.
And finally, for today's program, let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history.
This week, we learn about a school in the U.S. state of Michigan that trained leaders on the church's health and temperance work.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On January 14, 1878, a new educational institution opened in Battle Creek, Michigan. The Health and Temperance Missionary School was a joint enterprise of Battle Creek Sanitarium and Battle Creek College to prepare leaders and instructors in the health and temperance work of the church. Its initial enrollment was 75 students, but this soon grew to 150. The course continued for 20 weeks, with daily classes on subjects such as anatomy, physiology, chemistry, physics, and mental philosophy, what today would probably be called psychology. The Health and Temperance Missionary School was a major part of the health education campaign the Battle Creek Sanitarium was created to carry on. Later, the school's objectives were taken over by the American Medical Missionary College, but its ultimate successor is Loma Linda University's School of Public Health. 22 years and 2 days later, on January 16, 1900, Sarepta Myrenda Irish Henry died. Mrs. Henry, as she was known for most of her public career, was a noted temperance reformer. A Methodist, from 1879 to 1895, Mrs. Henry had been a national evangelist and activist, preaching and organizing for the Women's Christian Temperance Union. She was known across the United States, but in 1895 she fell critically ill, and in 1896 she became a patient at Battle Creek Sanitarium. She recovered her health and became a Seventh-day Adventist. She continued to work for temperance reform, but put more and more energy into her new church. In 1898, she proposed a plan for what she called women's ministry, the forerunner of the much more recently created Women's Ministries Department. Ellen White was one who repeatedly and warmly endorsed Mrs. Henry, whose talents were recognized in 1898 when the General Conference made her a ministerial licentiate. She was the first woman to receive a ministerial license by vote of the General Conference Committee, as opposed to a conference committee. A prolific author and preacher, she was estimated by her contemporaries to have brought hundreds of men and women to Jesus before her untimely death at the age of 61, which was 118 years ago this week.
Thanks for watching A&N. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We'd love to hear from you, so send us your feedback and tell us how your church is making a difference in its community.
Be sure to capture plenty of video footage and photos to write up a summary of the event's important details. And feel free to send full video reports as well.
You can reach us by sending an email to annvideo11@gmail.com.
Before we say goodbye, here's some good news from the book of Colossians, chapter 3, verses 23 and 24.
The passage says, "Work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as your reward, and that the master you are serving is Christ."
That's our program for this week. And remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
And take care.